You are listening to Art Scene, the podcast, where we share authentic stories about talented teachers who turn moments into movements. This is their art, and these are their stories. Now we're live from the Academy Art Museum in Easton for the MAEA, Maryland Art Education Association's Leadership Retreat. And we're about to do a panel tour.
All right. So we are, again, we've been really fortunate to have Lisa Stuart Whitehead, Gino, Molfino, and Michael Bell join us today. They all have served in amazing leadership capacities throughout our state as county leaders in visual arts, also on the national level as well, in terms of leadership, commendations, and awards. So without further ado, we are going to kind of jump into a leadership journey and a discussion of that leadership journey with this group. We're going to do this in a slightly amended way. We had set aside about 90 minutes for this, but we're going to kind of condense it a little more. At your seats, there is a graphic organizer inspired by the logo of the Academy Art Museum, just a little personal reflection worksheet that you can kind of take some information as you're listening to this presentation, but also take some time maybe for some personal reflection around your own leadership pathway. It's broken into 3 sections. First being the catalyst that's driving your leadership work. I love this definition of catalyst being like an event, a person, or a thing that's causing change or action in your life. And again, when we kind of frame that around our work in visual arts education, that can be, again, that inspiration piece. Moving beyond that, again, we're building a pyramid here, much like the logo. We're looking at those supports that give assistance to or enable you in your work. Who are those supports? Who's that community? What are those things that are moving you forward? And again, moving last to that piece around impact. So really what is that impact that you are seeking to gain through your efforts, through that work? I think that a big part about this is, when we are working as leaders, we often need to be able to speak concisely and clearly about what it is that we wish to achieve, and we often are not given a lot of time and space to do that. The other thing is, if you are ever going for an award for our state or for nationally, you need to create a bio. I hope that this is a way for you to maybe start that process a little bit, because all of you should be on our awards panel for sure. So just thinking about, again, some of the things that are really important to you in your work as leaders across the state. All right. Next, I am going to jump in with our panelists. We do have a kind of large list of questions to kind of get into, but the first section, we're going to really just kind of begin with that journey around leadership. Beginning with, tell us a little bit about you, what you do now, and your journey to this point in your career. Because we are art educators, if you could think of a visual metaphor for your leadership experience, feel free to share it as well.
Oh, you want me to start? Okay. Hi, good afternoon. My name is, I guess we'll do names.
We can do
Okay,
names.
great. So Lisa Stewart, Dr. Lisa Stewart. I'm not so good at putting the doctor on every single time, but I'm sure we'll get into that as well. I supervise the visual art program in Prince George's County Public Schools, which is a very large school system right outside of Washington, D.C. I have the privilege of supervising 330 art teachers, pre-K through 12. And my leadership journey began as an elementary art teacher in Montgomery County Public Schools. I taught there for 9 years. I then was fortunate to be able to work in central office as a content specialist, where I also worked with art and theater and dance teachers. And I did that for 7 years. And then now I've been the visual arts supervisor in Prince George's County for 11 years. My leadership journey began when someone tapped me in a meeting and asked me if I would go into leadership, if I would start my leadership journey. So I started by getting my supervision and administration certification. And then I started curriculum writing. I started mentoring teachers, kind of doing all the leadership roles in my county. Coming to Prince George's County has been amazing. I love working with the teachers there. And I would say my metaphor, my visual metaphor for my leadership is coming into Prince George's County, I had to kind of, the direction, I call it a cruise ship. I had to kind of change direction of the cruise ship. Because it's 330 teachers, it's a very large ship. We're in a very large county. So the metaphor is like turning the ship slowly. All the members of the ship had to not get thrown off or not get sick as I was turning the ship. And so I am happy to say that after 11 years, I feel like we're going in a really amazing direction. For the first time ever, I have filled all my jobs, every single position. Yes. So I'm really, really happy and excited.
All right, I'll jump in. I'm Michael Bell, and I'm a supervisor of visual and performing arts, school library media in Queen Anne's County Public Schools, where I've served that role the past 7 years. It's going on my 8th. Prior to that, I was 23 years in the classroom as a secondary visual arts educator and building up one of the most highly recognized programs in the country at that time. And now I get to lift my programs up, my teachers up, and that's been very important to me. I would say the visual metaphor is a lot like kitchen nightmares. So when I first got into Queen Anne's County, just imagine ingredients everywhere, total chaos, people doubting themselves, systems that were broken or never put into place. I was the first actual art supervisor they ever had that was in the arts. So you can imagine what you're walking into there. So underneath it all, there's always someone or something worth saving, and I think that for me was just helping people to rediscover their purpose. That became very important to me early on, and finding out what's better, what's next, what else is out there for them that they could hang their hats on and champion in their successes. So I guess as a leader, identity becomes a real funny thing, because I think when I first started out, I always saw myself as someone who wanted to stay an artist, and I championed that with my teachers, and I saw myself as such. And then for a while became Michael Bell, the teacher, and now it's Michael Bell, the supervisor. So I really think for everyone, there's not really one purpose that you have out there, and who says you can't have more than one?
So my name is Gino Molfino. I'm the coordinator of fine arts for the Howard County Public School System. Like Michael, I oversee more than just visual arts. I have also dance and theater, and we service roughly 200 teachers. 140 of them are visual arts teachers. And I think my leadership journey started not so much on a leadership pathway, but just a pathway of like competency. I think I went through high school and was just always interested in learning new things. Sitting, listening to everybody else talk, I forgot that I actually was vice president and the president of NAHS when I was in high school. But the idea of just trying to get to understand and know as much as you possibly can in whatever situation has always been really important to me. And then the leadership stuff has always come, it sounds like idiotic sometimes, but like just naturally, right? Where you get asked or tapped to do things when you least expect it. And so that just journey kept continuing, right? You go through undergrad, and I was a studio major there. I graduated and was going through there and just thought I was just going to be a painter or an artist. But got tapped to, while I was in undergrad, teach some continuing studies courses and help, I guess, what they called studio assistant back then. And you end up doing all of the grunt work, as it was, prepping brushes and cleaning up and helping students that, were kind of on the peripheral of class a little bit. And I felt like I really enjoyed that. Ended up going through art ed, getting my master's, and then taught for a number of years. Started at the elementary level and then transferred to high school. And like Michael was saying, had a lot of success there with students, developing some really great portfolios, getting a lot of recognition. And through that hard work, you end up getting touched on the shoulder to, like Lisa was saying, to do a lot of other things. And so I never really envisioned myself running a program or sitting on the board of a national organization, but you just kind of get recommended for things a lot. And I'm looking at Lisa because she's the one that recommends me for stuff.
She does that.
But, you just find yourself saying yes to a lot of things, and that's kind of how it starts. So in terms of a metaphor, I was sitting here and I have two that I actually wrote down, but one is, I think leadership's like a kaleidoscope. It's like, you twists in all sorts of ways, and it changes and it evolves, and parts of the little images kind of come together or disperse and become new things, and kind of just things are always in flux, and you have to kind of figure out how to navigate all of that changing atmosphere or environment all the time. And the second is, Lisa kind of hinted on it. Everything is like a cruise ship. I think it's like, I like to think my cruise ship has like a really nice pool on the top floor, but on the top deck, not floor. Right? But it's really just messy, and it's full of a lot of layered pieces and things and stuff. And as kind of a leader, you're just kind of navigating a lot of stuff, and hopefully you don't hit a massive iceberg and go down with the ship. But, those were the two I was really thinking about.
That's great. Thank you. The next question and maybe the one after, I'm going to sort of combine a bit. Thinking, next about our state organization and nationally, just how those communities have supported your work as an educator and as a leader, and maybe even how you've kind of come to find your leadership style in that work.
Yeah, so I've been involved. My very first conference, NAEA conference, was when I was in college. So I went as a pre-service. It was in Washington, D.C. in 1997. And so I went to that conference, and I was instantly hooked into NAEA. And I was like, I don't care what I got to do every single year. I'm going to get myself to this conference. I don't care where it is. And so I've just gone every single year. I became a member in 1997, and I've been a part of NAEA ever since. It's like my family, and I get to see my family like once a year when I go to conference. And so then joining MAEA and like being on the board of MAEA became like my family here in Maryland, and connecting with all the other arts people across the state. And so both MAEA and NAEA have just been a major part of my life, like ever since I became a teacher. And I just can't imagine being without them. It's like having this support group, because as an elementary art teacher, I was the only one in the building. And so having the ability to talk with other teachers around the state and be like, oh, your problems are the same problems I'm having, and vice versa. So it just became this wonderful kind of community for me. And then in terms of my leadership style, one of the big things in Prince George's County, we take a test called Strength Finders. It's like a leadership program. And out of that, I discovered that I am a WOO, which is winning others over. And those of you that know me know that, that is something that I'm just really good at doing. And so my leadership style is to get to know each and every person, to understand who they are, their background, what they need, and to bring whatever type of support each teacher needs. And so that's just become my style, is to figure out how to win everyone over, win over the principals, win over the leadership, win over IT departments, win over whoever I got to win over. That's what I'm here to do.
That's great. And you definitely wooed me into participation in MAEA when you were president.
My introduction to becoming wooed into a role, it was very early on. Mark Coates was our supervisor for a time, and he had nominated me, and I won a 2002 secondary MAEA Division Director Award. And upon winning this, he said, and congratulations, you're now also the secondary division director. So that was how I assumed a leadership role early on. But it was also great because it was how I met Gino at first. At the time, I was very young, starting out, and one of the best experiences I had was him taking me for a day, driving me around to the best art programs that he knew about all over the state, and one of them invariably was Gino's, and he was teaching at River Hill at the time. And so I got to see him in action, and went to Towson High School, went to a few different places, and it really brought it all back for me, where I brought it back and I said, I need to change everything I'm doing. And he said, no, it wasn't for that, but take a little sampling of each thing that could possibly work in your style and then bring that to the table. So from there, established a lot of NAEA Rising Star Award winners with kids, establishing a award-winning National Art Honor Society chapter. And now, giving back, it's been fantastic. We had Andrea Schulte, who was here today presenting with me, who won an MAEA Secondary Division Award. She had her first Rising Star Award winner. Stephanie Zeiler, one of our lead teachers at Queen Anne's. She won the 2023 National Art Honor Society Chapter Sponsor of the Year Award. It was an award I had won 10 years prior. So it just all comes full circle that way. As far as defining my leadership style, I really lead through stories and relationships. And if you've ever heard the expression, data should drive your instruction, I'm sure everybody's heard that. Well, I've also heard even superintendents say, touting the quality programs. But for me, it's been data should be the passenger at best. Relationships should be the driver, and it's quality teachers that build quality programs, not the other way around. So that's how I came into things leading. And when I do walkthroughs in classrooms, it's in my look-fors. Do you see, hear, and know all of your students? Is there movement, music, engagement through experiential learning happening? And is there student choice, student voice? So it's relationships first, stories at the center, and cultivating a culture that inspires. That's for me.
I think for me, it's a lot of things. I think what Lisa and Michael said, I could just say ditto to in a lot of ways, because Maryland's not a huge state, right? So we all know each other, and I think if you're doing something that's really great for kids, then it's pretty apparent, I think, in our state. And so the way that they both talked about kind of getting, this is going public, isn't it? I was going to say indoctrinized into MAEA is kind of like a similar journey. But, I think MAEA and NAEA continue to be kind of instrumental in my growth. I don't necessarily know we lose that. I talked about being a learner and that being really important, like that part of learning that we research and we seek and we kind of find and we apply, and that circular kind of research process has been embedded in kind of everything. And I think MAEA and NAEA continue to help me grow professionally, but also personally, with those connections and those interpersonal relationships that we build over time. And the organizations themselves have given me access to resources, research, relationship building that continue to inform my work even today. Whether it's presenting at conferences, participating in national leadership convenings, or simply connecting with other arts leaders, the organizations have offered the space to reflect, which we don't often get as teachers. It's also provided the platform to innovate and try new things out without sometimes things don't work, right? And that's okay. And then it also, like Lisa was saying, it makes you feel like you're a part of something, right, larger, and helping the organization and students out nationally. The community, whether it's locally or nationally, has been a grounding force, and it reminds me that even in the systems work that I do now, which is a lot of what we do as supervisors, it can be a creative movement, right? You can still be creative, and those connections keep the work human and I think purposeful and inspired. My leadership style, Lisa was talking about kind of Gallup poll stuff. And I pulled strategic, and by pulled I mean you go through and answer like 100 questions, and it tells you what you are. It would kind of be cooler if it was like that genie device in Big or whatever that spits out a ticket. I wish I would kind of envision it like that a little bit. But I got strategic as one of mine, but I think in being strategic, I think it's really important, like Michael was saying, to be collaborative, to be super reflective is part of my practice. I'm super goal-oriented and kind of mission-driven, so I have a really good sense of what I want for students, and I always have, even when I was in the classroom, and I've just kind of applied that to this position and looking at it from a big picture, but I try to balance that vision with the defining how to help teachers get there as well through practical supports. And so I just try to create spaces that provide space for others to lead, to grow, and to feel seen through all of the stuff that everybody's already kind of talked about as well. But I think one of my strengths in leadership is just to really figure out how to make connections between big picture thinking with on-the-ground practices, I think.
That's great. Thank you. So the kind of next section of our questions gets a bit into the meat of the work, thinking through, and, I know that just as we're kind of considering time, I might kind of pick and choose a little bit of these. Actually, if you guys would be comfortable with it, is it okay if I ask the audience of these questions, which maybe resonates with them the most, and we can maybe go from there?
Let's do it.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's do the second one? Okay. All right. I'll read it so that you can hear it. All right. So this question being, as educators and arts leaders, we should always keep learning and growing. How do you keep yourself fresh and in tune with emergent trends and needs of teachers and students?
Do you want to go first again?
Sure.
Okay.
I am constantly in school. I think I'm constantly taking classes. I'm constantly going to professional development. I'm constantly in schools, kind of learning from the teachers and what they need. Trying to read as many articles as I possibly can. So I feel like I'm a forever learner, and that will never ever stop. Trying to learn from anywhere and everything that I can. Even this summer, I've gone to 3 different conferences in one summer. Some on my own dime, because I really feel like it's important for me to continually grow and learn and educate myself. I have all the degrees. I've done all the things. I even have a superintendent certification, not because I want to be a superintendent, but I want to think like a superintendent. People ask me like, oh, are you going to go be a principal? Are you going to go higher up in central office? And I wanted to learn how to speak the right language as an art educator so that I can advocate for all the things that our teachers need.
Can I just say real
go
quick
ahead.
that can you be my superintendent?
It's a lot of work. That's a over 24/7 job, being a superintendent.
Well, I think it's so brilliant what you share, though, too. The fact that you've created so many opportunities for yourself should you ever want them. And I think for everyone, I mean, beyond just pursuing your doctorate, getting your superintendent endorsement, learning how to speak others' language, I mean, that's so important. You've got to be able to speak the language of the streets with your people, but you've got to be able to also be in the political realm and be able to speak in those arenas in order to advocate and be effective as well. And so I think that's amazing. For me, it's been presenting annually. I think that's helped keep me fresh. I've done not only keynotes and workshops for people throughout the state, I'll do them around the country. I've done them for the Art of Education University, gotten teachers involved in co-presenting with them to try to lead by example in that way. And so that keeps me fresh. And it's been great to be able to take some of the things that I used to be able to do as a teacher, and now I'm sharing stories around our teachers as well as our students in our district that I'm not teaching, but I'm getting to know them through our teachers and through them sharing those stories. One other way to keep things out there and fresh for our public so that we do have a presence, one of the first things that I did upon entering Queen Anne's was I partnered with a local newspaper reporter and began writing Arts Teens of the Week columns in the local newspaper. So that was a way to get our students out there, and then creating Art Scene, the podcast, was a way to share our teacher stories. And so that was just another vehicle to do monthly things and also keep me fresh and keep me out there with everyone and allow them to have a voice.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me it's been a lot of things, a combination of all of that stuff, right? It's, I went into studio painting because I was really interested in art making. And so, keeping yourself inquisitive and just getting your hands on as many things as possible is an important part of staying current, right, and relevant. I mean, the art world keeps moving, and if you're not continuously researching and studying and going to galleries or museums or sitting in lectures or watching podcasts or video selections of artists and seeing the stuff, then I think you tend to kind of stagnate a little bit, right? The second key component for me is really knowing teachers. So what Lisa was saying about getting into classrooms is really important, right? You can't really help best service teachers, and I use that word very loosely, without knowing what their strengths are, but also knowing what their challenges are. And so I pride myself in knowing each one of my 140 visual arts teachers, and I can actually say I know my dance and theater teachers as well, even though it's not my content background. But being able to program and plan and long-term vision what the county can and should be going is part of knowing teachers and what they need, right? And then how you can communicate and best get them brought into and excited about and engaged in the stuff that you're doing with them. I think beyond that, I think tap into national networks. I mean, there's a lot of connections you can make through NAEA, through being present and going and just saying yes to stuff. I mean, I jokingly said Lisa's gotten me into a ton of stuff, but it's like, she's like, oh, hey, you'd be great for this. You should try this. Okay, well, it's awesome. I'll try it, I guess. And I often get myself into a lot of hot water or trouble, but I can find some way to swim or get myself out of it too. And last, I would say, like somebody once said that, I highly regard that, they basically said, I'm not a dinosaur. Right, and it was really in response to being called like a robot in terms of just constantly pushing through and going through and doing things. But I really liked that response in context because what we all need to understand is that pendulums constantly swing back and forth in education. And I think the field keeps moving, as I was saying, and constantly involved. And if I'm not continuously evolving as well and understanding things with fresh eyes, then I can't really serve my community and ultimately become extinct like the dinosaur.
I'm so glad that was a question that we focused on. I think in all of your answers, you brought not only that piece where maybe, that you're fulfilling the tasks of your roles clearly very well, but kind of finding areas beyond your work to find engagement, whether it be what Gino was mentioning about building these really strong, authentic relationships with teachers in your community, or Michael, writing for the local newspaper. It's just I think an incredible community connection, or thinking the top administrator in your school system, and finding, following that achievement path to really use those perspectives. I feel like we can all take that into our own account. Often I feel like I've found that, the art teacher is at the school not always looked at as the leader, and sometimes we have to sort of say, hey, actually we really do have quite a bit of really valuable knowledge to contribute to these conversations, to these decisions that are happening in our school. We know, if you're in an elementary, you know all the kids, right? you know so many, your work intersects with so much of what is going on every day.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the times, just in that regard, thinking from the perspective of teachers, they often feel like they have no agency or power, right? Especially as a young teacher stepping in the classroom, you're just kind of trying to survive, right? And because you're seeing every kid in the building, or you have 5 different distinct preps, or any myriad of things and stuff. But I think the longer I was in the classroom, the more agency I had, and the more I realized, oh wait, we run the school, and it's not our positions that really have any power, right? It's perceived. But as teachers in the classroom, it's you have so much autonomy to take care of the stuff and things. It's just being able to ensure that you have that voice and you feel comfortable enough asserting it is, I think, the distinct difference that it took me a while to learn.
Yeah, that's a great point. I do want to, I'm going to touch on one more question from this, and then we have kind of a summary question to sort of end our time together. This one, because we really did focus so much on, or at least maybe my mind is going so much toward advocacy, I'm gonna pick on this one. But how does advocacy play a role in your work from your experiences? And I know you've kind of touched a bit on this, but what just are some key components for successfully advocating in art education that you've found?
Sure, I'll jump in. I would say, for me, in the beginning, it was about creating and cultivating an environment where our teachers felt like they were artists, so they could cultivate that same mentality within their classes with their students, and that they didn't have to trade in being an artist for being an educator, that they could do both. And so a lot of the things that I've done advocacy-wise have been not only from a PR standpoint, but just being generally supportive in other ways. When I was tasked with writing Title IV grants for our district, one of my other duties as assigned, I found ways to build in our visual and performing arts right into Title IV grant work so that I can support teachers with NAEA, MMEA memberships for them and be able to send them to conferences so that those that maybe financially couldn't do it, now they don't have that barrier in front of them. I can't do it for every single one of them every year, but I do have a rotation that we work through. Our visual journaling movement, where we started the visual journaling course, I was able to build in some visual journaling kits that went out to those schools to help further support that movement and promote it, so that it shows them I'm also putting some skin in the game as well. Now, I will also say, in terms of advocacy, there's a huge push nationwide with our CTE programs, with our pathways. Well, this year I partnered with our CTE supervisor, and we launched the state's first ever Fine Arts Signing Day. And we did that at both high schools. We were part of what CTE did, and then we had our own special one. And it was amazing. And for those students, I mean, countless parents coming up afterwards, I can't believe you did that for our students. Nobody knows how hard they work and how many hours they spend outside of school working and honing their craft for them to be recognized, just like the athletes, just like some of our career pathways and military. They thought it was phenomenal. So that was a big one this year. We're going to continue that.
That's great. For me, I feel like one of the biggest advocacy tools that I suggest that each and every one of my art teachers do is to actually go and get their admin certification, because I feel that even if you know you don't want to be a principal, what you learn by going through that certification program is going to help strengthen your speaking abilities when trying to come across with what you need for students. I'll give you an example. I had a teacher write to me the other day saying, I asked for $6,000 in art materials. I need all new everything. And so, and they went to their principal, and their principal was like, let's sit down and have a conversation. $6,000 is a lot of money. And so I came back with how they can better advocate by showing where will that money go? What categories is that money in? What is the appropriate time to ask for money? Because budget cycles, right? Like learning about budget cycles and when when are the appropriate times of the year to actually ask for funds to go in? And so I get emails like that a lot, like, how do I advocate for this or that? And I feel like a lot of teachers, if they went and learned a little bit more about how to run a school, they might be able to understand more about how to present information in a way that administrators can understand a little bit more. A lot of teachers will say, well, I need this, well, I need that. No, the students need it, right? And so how can we kind of rechange some of our language to be better advocates? Also, I feel like NAEA does a really good job of having advocacy tools. They actually will create a letter that you can give to your administrator to ask for why you need to go to the national conference. They have NAEA position statements, which I think are really good tools. So if you're not sure of like where to begin with a specific problem, well, NAEA probably has a position statement on that, except for AI. We're working on that. You can go to the position statements and say, like, okay, how can I use some information from this position statement to advocate for why I need more arts integration in my school, or why I need more budget in my classroom, or what is NAEA's stance on how many kids should be in my class, or how much room should I have in an art room? NAEA has all those tools, and so I don't feel like we lean enough on some of those tools to support us.
I'm thinking about advocacy in a lot of different ways, I guess. In reference to like advocating for staff, which kind of Michael was hitting on, I think it's kind of, I think about it the same way I thought about teaching, right? To best teach the students, you have to know them really well, right? And know what their strengths and weaknesses are, and what context they're coming from, and historical experiences have been, to best service them. And so, like, I think about advocating for staff in that way, right? Because sometimes staff just need access to funding and to things. They don't need you to get in the way of that. So it's just providing them access to things, which ends up being advocacy for them, right? Then I also think about it in terms of like program advocacy, and it's like there are all sorts of things programmatically that we can do to help use that student story that Michael was talking about to like kind of advocate to the broader community, the board, what the programs do for the students, right, through the student voice, whether it be through exhibitions, marching them up and having them testify in front of the board, showcasing their artwork, having performances, partnering with community organizations and partnerships, and being a part of like district celebrations and that kind of thing. And so there's that kind of program advocacy through the presenting of the quality of what you have in the program. And then the last is like through this idea of like knowing what your sphere of influence is and understanding how to speak that same language, which Michael also talked about a little bit as well, but making sure that you are, if you are going to talk to a board about advocating for budget, make sure that you have the data and the numbers that help support that, and you're speaking the language of the board, right? That's a huge sphere of influence. We have partnerships with the county exec. It's not that I can have direct contact with him about, supporting our budget and those things, but I can certainly encourage him to have a reception with students and make sure parents are there, and, help support inviting our Fine Arts Advisory Council to have, connective tissue meetings with him while we have these openings, right? And say, hey, talk about some strengths, but also talk about where we have some challenges as well. So that sphere of influence becomes almost not overt, but subversive a little bit, right? But being very strategic about how you advocate, when you need to put your foot on the gas and have really honest, transparent conversations, but then also know when you can like take your foot off the gas and be like, okay, here's access, empower that individual or the teacher or the parent or the student to then take the reins and kind of also serve as that advocacy tool in some way after you set them up with what Lisa was talking about, the skills to be able to do it themselves. Right. Because you can't, I think at this job, one of the hardest things to do is knowing when to do what, right? And what is the right answer? And there isn't one right answer. It's just like the classroom or making art. It's like we're all just improvising, right? And we just try to go off precedent of things that we know have happened before or resources that we have access to. And I think ultimately we're just trying to also, I hate to make it sound like it's a guessing game, but we're also just trying to guess a little better each time we do it the next time,
And sometimes it's leverage too, right?
Yeah.
Like if I'm presenting at a budget meeting and I know I've saved our district $80,000 in Title IV grants, I'm going to lead with that and say, now I'm only asking 20, so I've saved you 80. All I'm asking is 20.
It's leveraging, it's leveraging and using the data. Yeah.
And sometimes it's about playing the long game too. I think I'm really good at figuring out when to play the long game and taking a no as a not right now, right? Like I'll get no's all the time. I'm like, okay, I understand. I understand it's not right now because I'm going to come back and I'm going to ask for it again, right? And so sometimes it'll take me 2 or 3 years to get something, but I'll get it eventually.
And sometimes you're not privy to why, right? I think that's the difficult thing in this position. Like we didn't talk about like sustainability or anything like that, but I think mentally, like this job is really difficult in that stepping out of the classroom and stepping centrally in the classroom, it's instantaneous gratification. And what I mean by that is like you implement something, you see kids, they provide you data or actual engagement pieces, and it's instantaneous. Did it work or not? In this job, it's a long game. It's you sometimes have to keep going back to the trough, and it's, I was going to curse a little bit, but it's frustrating, right? But I think that's part of, like, when things do work out or when staff are honored for the hard work that they do, our wins come from not so much the instantaneous gratification, but from that long game and making sure that you're setting up the pins in succession that will actually, or the dominoes, so that they will fall, right? And it sometimes takes a long time.
No way to control the storm. You can build better boats in the initial set it up.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think in all of your statements, you also outline so much from that perspective of opportunity. Like it's almost it's just impossible to enter that kind of work from like a despairing outlook. Like there's just no way to gain anything from that, even though what might feel like it's impossible, right? These like really difficult situations, or really is like no way to make progress unless you're able to have that vision of opportunity around it.
But I think, teachers need to understand also that they have a huge community out there, and they need to reach out to them in the same way. I mean, when I'm handed redoing our entire theater program, the first phone call I made was to Gino. You've done this. How did you do this? You're a visual arts guy like me. How do you manage your theater programs? What are some of your blind spots? Reached out to Lisa for different things. I mean, that your colleagues, that you surround yourself with successful, creative people, and invariably someone is going to have some of those answers already figured out. And then you figure out ways that you can help contribute to them as well.
Totally, yeah.
Michael's making me feel good, but I just basically went, hey, you should talk to this person over here.
But that's what it's about, right?
It is. Using resources.
You got to network.
It's not about who you know, it's about who Gino knows. And that's what you do.
And I just pass it to Lisa because it's really who she knows.
And she'll give them the nudge, and they'll just do the thing because
It's time.
Nobody's going to shoot her down.
It's a big tag you're
it's
at
the
kind
woo.
of thing.
It's the woo.
That's right. She gets what she wants when she wants it. So
Well, I will, I have to really thank you all for the effort and time that you put into preparing for this conversation, which I know we had to abridge somewhat today, and I just thank you for your flexibility on that. I know flexibility comes up a lot in your work on the day-to-day, and you've adapted beautifully to this. I do have like one concluding question really quickly as we're wrapping up, but I did also want to share with the group at large, there is this I should say is based on a recorded webinar that was done with NAEA, and it is on their site, on their professional learning site. So if you would like to continue listening to this conversation with these amazing leaders who've had a huge impact on my work, you can do that there, along with Andrew Watson.
Andrew Watson's also in there too.
So,
the four of us,
so that's and he's also wonderful as well. So we're kind of, we are in a little bit of the conclusion space of this conversation, and I am kind of considering some of these questions. I'm going to end with this one because I wrote it, but it is something I am genuinely, I think about this a lot, and it really is about just this forward thinking, and that is really what do you hope to see on the horizon for our upcoming generation of students and teachers? And I think that's a big one for right now, but.
Who wants to go first? Go ahead, Gino.
I think we're, I don't even know how to broach this question really. I think we're in really, really challenging times, right? But I'm also hoping
positive.
I am. Hold on, I'm turning, right? I think what I was going to say is I think if I think back to when I started teaching, 99, I remember thinking, okay, this is my first year. Next year will be easier. And what ended up happening was that I believe because I'm still a critical person of everything and anything, it's never really gotten easier, right? I just continue to up my expectations and the bar and things that I do, and it's just kind of an inherent quality, and they haven't gotten better. And you could couch that in a lot of ways. I'm spending more time doing something. I'm trying to change programs, and that takes a long time. However you want to couch it, we need more money, and the economy's not, and tax base is not there to increase the MOI for, student material needs and those types of things. But in any of those conversations, I think I'm also a catalyst of that, right? So like if I wanted things to become easier, yeah, they can certainly become easier. But they haven't. So I think so I just say that because I think, I hope to ultimately see more equity in access. Do I think that's going to become easier? No. I think it's going to become more of a challenge. But like I'd like to see more students with access to meaningful, culturally responsive arts education. I'd like to see more engaging teachers in the classroom, really practicing those things that they are teaching students. I want art classrooms where students feel seen, where they can, really explore contemporary art making practices, and where teachers are trusted and empowered and self-motivated to lead students in that work, right? I think we're ultimately here to shape future thinkers and innovators and develop student change agents. I know that's kind of a cliche term, but that next generation, I need that next generation to be able to pay for our Social Security, right? And so, they need to be able to do all the stuff and things. And so, I hope that what's on the horizon is that, we can still do the good work that can help position students in that way to go out in the workforce and do some really great things. And I think the arts are uniquely positioned to prepare students to do that, more so than some of the rote content that they're getting in classes. Our contents and our processes and our practices really help students understand the complexity of things in the world that they're stepping into. Like I said, I wish things were getting easier, and especially as I think we are kind of aging out into a time where, the sun's setting a little bit for us. I mean, am I going to be doing this for another 30 years? Maybe I'll still be here, and Michael will still be podcast recording us, and I'll have grayer hair and
you have
a wheelchair, but maybe I'll get to the point where I can say no to Lisa at some point. But
possibly,
I think everything in this profession can be a blessing or it can be a total curse depending on your positionality. And I think I just hope to be positive about stuff and try to put stuff in the right way or going in the right direction.
Lisa? Maybe. Sure. Well, I agree with Gino, and I also think that, like I said earlier when we were doing our visual journaling presentation, that I don't think we have a content issue. I think we have a connection issue. And this began at COVID. It was exacerbated then. And I still think we have a great connection issue. And so I think what's on the horizon for us is to figure out new and better ways to not only give our students, Gino alluded to having more engaging teachers in those spots. I think giving students an experience that is so memorable is so important. I'd asked our teachers at our last August PD, describe for me your favorite dining experience. And after we went around and they compared notes, invariably, the food was rarely mentioned. The food's the content, right? So it was the ambiance. It was how they felt. It was who knew them, who knew what they liked. It was who they were able to spend time with. It was all of these other things that were rooted in connection. So I think that on the horizon, I think relationships, not as a buzzword, but genuine connection, there's something to be said with that. And if we learn our student stories, we learn our teacher stories, and keep modeling and passing that down, I think that we'll create spaces that truly feel alive again.
I fully believe that in all the world's problems, the arts are the answer. The arts contain the answer.
1,000%.
And so my message to the future teachers of the world is, you know what you're doing. You got into this profession for a reason. You understand what the arts can do for students, and to have thick skin, because you're going to get a lot of no's, but take your no and turn it into a not now, right? And, I think that keep going, and you're on the right path.
That's a great ending to this conversation. Thank you all so much. I really just have so much appreciation for your words. I hope with these questions too that maybe these are some thoughts that we can bring to our own personal reflection in our work as we're moving forward in the next year. Certainly, all in community together. I am so grateful for your time for this panel. Thank you all for being here today. Really happy to see you all. And yeah, this is it.
Thank you, everyone.
Just again, a little bit about, we're all convening here today to do our annual leadership retreat. For some of you, this is a first time attending this event, which is really exciting. For others, we are convening again, maybe after some years away and coming back. For others of you, you've been with us, over the last several years. It's a really great opportunity for us to connect and really pursue our goals as an organization, and also look at our work individually as artists and educators and also leaders within our state. This aligns really closely with our mission as an organization to advance our education in Maryland, fulfilling human potential and promoting global understanding. We're a volunteer organization, so as you know, you're coming here to really give your time to this work, and it is so valuable to have your energy and efforts collectively working together with us today. Follow us on social media if you have not already, and we have also some wonderful social media contributors in our presence as well, who've helped us a lot this year with getting the word out about our organization. Before we kind of just get into our work as an organization, or our work with Michael and Andrea, just a couple things to kind of share about our organization. As of the July 1st, we were at 397 members, stayed pretty consistently around that, especially through the summer months. Our state is comprised of 4 different regions that are very diverse in terms of their geography, schools, all kinds of, there's so many different varied aspects to our state, and that's a really great strength of it. And another thing that I think is something that we're keeping note of is really so much of the strength of our organization is built on the work of students. So when we look at we have 400 members that are supporting over 2,500 NAHS and NJAHS members. That's just the secondary level. There's so much represented through the work of our students in our state. And we have 105 NAHS and junior art honor society chapters as of last year. So it's really good things to kind of think about regarding our work with kids.
And we do know that NAEA is working on piloting an elementary NAHS, which is exciting.
I worked with Paula last year to do the pilot, so it's like going into effect.
Is it this year?
This year, yeah.
And then maybe, yeah. And then we'll kind of go into some more of these details when we get into our business meeting later on. But yeah, thanks again, and I'm going to turn everything over now to